Donkey Kong Country is remembered as one of the most amazing leaps in gaming during the 90s. Rare took a B-list Nintendo character, gave him a sidekick, and dropped him into a jungle full of attitude, bananas, and groundbreaking technology. In 1994, it looked like nothing else on the Super Nintendo, and for many players, it was the first time they felt like games could truly wow you with visuals and sound alone. At the time, platformers were everywhere. Super Mario had perfected the formula, Sonic was zipping around on Sega's hardware, and the market was filled with copycats trying to ride the wave. Then Rare came in and didn't just make another Mario clone, they created something that felt new, stylish, and distinctly their own. The jungle wasn't just a backdrop, it was alive with detail, and the soundtrack wasn't just catchy, it was atmospheric. But nostalgia only carries a game so far. 30 years later, does Donkey Kong Country still swing as high as its reputation, or has time exposed the cracks underneath the barrel blasting spectacle? Welcome to What Made This Game Amazing, where I break down every game across 5 core pillars, each scored out of 20 for a final verdict out of 100. Here's how it works. First is fun. Was the game genuinely fun and did it keep me coming back? Second is gameplay. Are the mechanics solid? Are the controls smooth and satisfying? Third is visuals. Does the game look amazing or have a unique style that pulls you in? Fourth is story. Are the characters, dialogue, or world worth exploring? Fifth is value. Was it worth your time and money? Is it memorable? Then we add up each pillar for a score out of 100 and rank it from nowhere near amazing to amazing. Now let's get into it.
Fun, 18 out of 20.
Okay.
At its core, Donkey Kong Country is flat out fun. From the very first jungle stage, the game sets a tone of energy and rhythm that carries you all the way to the showdown with King K. Rool. The level design flows like a roller coaster. You're rarely standing still, instead bouncing off of enemies, rolling through groups of gremlins, or blasting between barrels in quick succession. This flow is what keeps the game engaging. Mario games often emphasize precision and exploration, but Donkey Kong Country emphasizes momentum. You feel rewarded for keeping up your pace, almost like the platformer equivalent of combo streaks in an action game. The buddy system with Donkey and Diddy Kong adds another layer of fun. Donkey is strong, heavy, and perfect for smashing big enemies, while Diddy is lighter, faster, and more nimble. Swapping between them keeps the gameplay fresh, and losing one of them adds tension. Suddenly, you're stuck with just one character, and the safety net is gone. And then you've got the animal buddies. Rambi the rhino bulldozes through enemies and walls. On Guard makes underwater stages actually enjoyable. Espresso lets you glide across levels, and even Squawks gets a cameo to light up dark areas. They weren't just gimmicks, they expanded the possibilities of each stage, making every level feel like it had its own twist. Of course, with fun comes challenge, and Donkey Kong Country is not shy about difficulty. The game starts friendly enough, but by the later stages, Torchlight Trouble, Tanked Up Trouble, and Platform Perils, the gloves come off. These levels demand tight precision and patience, and for some players, they cross the line from challenging to frustrating. But for others, the difficulty curve makes finally clearing them incredibly rewarding. Overall, the engagement stays strong across the entire adventure. It has that one more try quality that defines the best platformers. Even when you fail, you're itching to dive back in and prove yourself.
Gameplay, 16 out of 20.
Okay.
Controls are the backbone of any platformer, and for the most part, Donkey Kong Country nails it. Running, jumping, rolling, and bouncing feels satisfying, and the game's momentum-driven physics set it apart from Mario's more precise style. There's nothing quite like chaining a roll into a jump, bouncing off an enemy, and landing straight into a barrel blast that fires you across the screen. When it clicks, the game feels like a perfectly timed piece of choreography. But the controls aren't perfect. Donkey in particular has a heavy, slightly sluggish feel. His jumps are shorter, His rolls are slower, and while he's great for power, he often feels clunky when the game asks for precision. Diddy, on the other hand, is much snappier, which is why so many players defaulted to him when possible. Hit detection can also feel inconsistent. Sometimes you'll swear you landed on an enemy's head only to take a hit, and that inconsistency adds to the frustration in already difficult stages. Animal buddies, while fun, also highlight the game's rough edges. Rambi is a joy to use in open levels, but feels awkward in tighter spaces. On guard makes swimming bearable, but the underwater controls are still floaty and imprecise compared to the rest of the game. The boss battles are another area where the gameplay stumbles. They are simple and repetitive, often relying on just one pattern repeated a few times. Compared to Mario's boss fights, which had variety and creativity, Donkey Kong Country's bosses feel like an afterthought. That said, when the game is firing on all cylinders, the controls and gameplay loop are still excellent. The rhythm of movement is unlike any other platformer, and that uniqueness is why the gameplay holds up despite its flaws.
Visuals, 19 out of 20.
Okay.
This is where Donkey Kong Country made history. In 1994, the pre-rendered 3D graphics were revolutionary. Rare used silicone graphic workstations, the same kind of tech used for Hollywood visual effects, to render characters and environments, then converted them into 2D sprites for the SNES. The result? A game that looked like nothing else on the market. Players were blown away. The jungle felt alive with swaying leaves and moving backgrounds. Snowstorms would intensify mid-level, fog would roll in, and underwater caverns shimmered with detail. Each world had its own atmosphere, and the variety kept things fresh. Bright jungles, gloomy caves, treacherous factories, and serene reefs. The art direction also gave Donkey Kong a new identity. Before this game, Donkey Kong was mostly remembered as Mario's old rival from the arcade era. Rare reinvented him, giving him attitude, personality, and a fully realized world that made him feel like a star. Looking back today, the graphics haven't aged as gracefully as hand-drawn sprite art from that same era. Mario's colorful worlds remain timeless, while some of DKC's pre-rendered visuals can look a little muddy or stiff. Character animations, while groundbreaking at the time, don't have the expressiveness of something like Mega Man or Kirby. Still, judged in its historical context, Donkey Kong Country's visuals were a showstopper. They sold the SNES all over again and gave Nintendo a powerful weapon against Sega and the upcoming PlayStation.
Story, 11 out of 20.
Okay.
If we're honest, story is the weakest part of Donkey Kong Country. The setup is bare bones. King K. Rool stole Donkey Kong's banana hoard, and you need to get it back. That's it. No twists, no surprises, just bananas. But the charm comes through in the details. Cranky Kong, the original arcade Donkey Kong, serves as a grumpy mentor who constantly breaks the fourth wall, poking fun at modern games. His commentary gave the game a self-aware humor that was rare for the time. The environments themselves also add a layer of world building. Each island area feels distinct, from the lush forest to the mechanical factories. They don't connect in a narrative sense, but the environmental storytelling gives the impression of a living world under siege by the Kremlings. That said, compared to later Rare titles like Banjo-Kazooie or even platformers like Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country doesn't do much to flesh out its own world and characters. The bosses are mostly big animals with little personality, and King K. Rool, while iconic in design, doesn't have much depth beyond being a greedy crocodile. It works fine for a platformer, but it's definitely not the reason people remember this game.
Value, 19 out of 20.
Okay.
Donkey Kong Country isn't a particularly long game by today's standards. You can roll through the main story in just a handful of hours, but finishing the adventure once is really only the beginning of what the game has to offer. For players who want more, Rare packed in hidden bonus rooms, secret exits, and a satisfying challenge in going for the elusive 101% completion rating. Hunting down every last secret barrel, finding every bonus stage, and fully clearing the map adds a surprising layer of replayability. On top of that, the game wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. It sold over 9 million copies, making it one of the best-selling SNES games ever. It single-handedly extended the SNES's lifespan at a time when 3D consoles were on the horizon. The impact went beyond sales. Donkey Kong Country showed that with clever art direction and technology, old hardware could still compete with the future. It inspired countless imitators and cemented Rare as one of the most respected developers of the 90s. The soundtrack deserves special mention. Dave Wise's compositions elevated the entire experience. Tracks like Aquatic Ambiance and Fear Factory are still considered masterpieces of game music. They weren't just catchy, they created atmosphere and emotion in ways few platformers ever achieved.
Final score, 83 out of 100.
Okay.
Donkey Kong Country is one of those rare games that was both a product of its time and a title that pushed the industry forward. Its controls may not be perfect and its story is wafer thin, but its innovation, atmosphere, and sheer fun factor make it easy to see why it's remembered so fondly. It may not be the absolute peak of platforming, but it redefined what the SNES could do, turned Donkey Kong into a franchise star, and showed that video games could wow players not just with gameplay, but with visuals, sound, and style. 30 years later, Donkey Kong Country is not just a piece of nostalgia, but as a milestone that changed gaming forever. That is why Donkey Kong Country earns the rating of almost amazing. What do you think of the review? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any more breakdowns.